I'm with West Adult Basic Education. In a former life, I used to be a high school language arts teacher. So yeah, so I kind of have that background too. With West ABE, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I have open GED labs. I'm out in the rural area, so I have open GED labs. I have a couple of reading classes at 2 different levels, a very foundational level and a middle intermediate level, star level class. And I also have a family literacy class. So if you're not familiar with family literacy structure, it really is, working on supporting families as they bring up their children and get them ready for school and to be successful at school. There's a parent ed time. There's a time with a child specialist, and there's a time with me. So the moms are focusing on various literacy goals throughout the day. One part's real play with a child specialist, and another part, the parent ed specialist, helps them with parenting goals, budgeting, very emotional support, positive discipline with the kids, a range of topics. But there's one part where we all overlap. We come together, usually late fall, and really guide the moms, so usually moms, with some literacy activities. And they feel like they're not teachers sometimes, but we encourage them that they're the first and foremost and most important and forever teachers of their kids. So we have a whole unit on dialogic reading, and it sounds fancy, but think dialogue. It's just talking. It's talking with our kids, talking with our tutorees, talking with our students. So I just want to take the fear out of it. We use academic language sometimes, and sometimes it's scarier than it needs to be. So this is talking as we're reading, as we're living. I want to be transparent that I borrowed all of this information from the Reading Rockets website, and I've adapted it from there. So all of this information, you can find yourself on Reading Rockets, and here's the writer there and the topic, effective ways to read aloud with young children. Sorry, you can hear my shuffling. I shouldn't apologize, right? I'll go on to the next slide here. So I want to begin with just running through very quickly my objectives for the day. So I want to introduce you to the sequence that we use as we're going through the stories with our littles. It's called PEER, an acronym. Go through the types of prompts that we can use, get some ideas, some resources, some tools in our toolkit. To enjoy books, and I love picture books, and I use them with my early English language students as well. So I use picture books not just with young people, but with beginning learners. I've even used it in my high school classrooms to introduce a topic. So you really can use them all over the place. And finally, to reflect on how you might use these ideas and the precepts in your own lives. Before I go on, I want to read a poem to you that I used to read at the beginning of poetry units in high school because I found it very kind of catch-22, or it just, studying poetry seemed to sometimes anyway, I'm giving too much away here, but I've chatted out the link to this poem so that you can grab it if you want to. This is by Billy Collins. It's called Introduction to Poetry. I asked them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out. Or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for the light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is to tie the poem to a chair with a rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. So before we begin beating reading with a hose, I want to remind us all that reading, I want it to be a joyful experience, an emotion building, positive emotion building experience. So no matter what our utilitarian reading goals are for the people in our charge, that also a goal, a secondary focus, and maybe a primary focus, is to create a warm, motivating, emotional connection to reading. So even though I'm going to be going through this and kind of dissecting the reading process, let's never forget, let's always remember, let me put it in a positive way, let's always remember to make it a joyful experience as we're doing this. Keep the fun in it, or it won't achieve your objectives anyway. Okay, so what is dialogic reading? We'll get to that in a moment. This is one of my family learning moms and her little girl. This was earlier this fall during the child education time. And so here's their time during class to connect with one another and to have some supportive folks around them as they build these literacy habits and activities into their own lives. So here, dialogic reading is a method of shared reading. So you're just having conversations, you're talking about a book. It's helping the learners, the children, to connect language and the content of the books to their own lives and experiences. We do that with the adults too, right? Dialogic reading is supporting those learners so that you can gradually release, move. You know, I think of our adult, it's very similar to best practice in adult instruction. We do some we do, the modeling part, and then we do a gradual release. We're doing it. We might do it for a long time together where there's lots of support and guidance, but we're moving towards the learner, the reader, the young reader, the new reader, if it's an adult, to be taking on that responsibility for them becoming the storyteller. So this is a lot of parallels. So I was going to ask you to be thinking, as I was talking about young children and this reading process, to make your own parallels. So be thinking, well, how is there a place for this child practice, child reading practice with our adult learners? So if you need that extra thing to be thinking about, imagine that. And finally, dialogic reading is the adult, the instructor, guiding the conversation and prompting. You're getting the thinking going, getting that spark, that inspiration going. And just quickly, I won't spend too much time on this. It's, I think, as people who are at the Language and Literacy Institute, you probably know the benefits of any kind of reading, but here, the benefits of dialogic reading, sharing this reading, it really builds an interest and that emotional connection to reading. And it brings people back during their whole lifetimes, always associating books with really good memories. So it's very motivational to make reading a lifelong activity. Another benefit is that for the really little people, they learn what print skills are, how it works, going from left to right, turning the pages from top to bottom. But then, it moves on to other rules. Think about our most advanced readers. They're learning text structures of different types of text. So all of this dialogic reading information that I give you, it might be, I'm using examples from very young readers, but I think it can be extrapolated out to older readers. Another benefit is that they use language. They're not just taking in, they're producing, so that language level, that complexity is built up. They increase their vocabulary and recognition of words, so they're building their oral and sometimes they can recognize words in print as well. And I'd add a fourth after this one, that, this goes back to that first bullet too, and a reminder that we're wanting to create positive interactions. So if this starts becoming with the beating of the hose, answer my questions, then it's not fun anymore. Okay, without further ado, here's the peer sequence. So this is one of the fundamentals, a fundamental technique in diagnostic reading. So it's really a sequence that repeats in very short interactions between the adult, the parent, and the young reader. Okay, so here we go. Don't forget that we're kind of learning to internalize this and not to beat the child with a hose kind of thing, or the reading with the hose. Keep in mind that all of this happens after a first read. So read the book first. You're modeling, you're building that big picture. So read through the entire book for the first time before you start adding in all of this talking. Okay, so the peer sequence is first. The first P is for prompting the child to say something about the book. You're evaluating the child's response, and that sounds really fancy, but you're really just paying attention to what they say and checking, is it accurate, and do you need to gently guide them to accuracy? The second E is expanding on that response. So you're building whatever language they use, that you're starting with the language that they have already, and then adding a little more language to it. And then that final R is repeating the prompt to get the child to use some language and be productive again, and make sure that they've learned from whatever you've expanded and built up. So for example, if you were reading this book and you were looking at this picture with your young reader, the parent might say, "What's this?" So there's the prompt, the first P, and the child might say, "It's a truck." And so you evaluate that quickly. of course, you're not even thinking about that. You're like, yeah, it's a truck. How can I build on that? So, yeah, so if you can offer some encouragement, do that. Yeah, that's right. You know, be happy about it. And then try to expand. That's right. It's a red fire truck. Wow, can you say that? Fire truck? So you're getting that repetition in, and then you're getting them to use the language. Okay. Then another precept in dialogic reading, another acronym that can help remind you of your toolkit, is CROWD. And it's the 5 types of prompts that you will use. So you're using these prompts, but then you're doing the peer sequence as you're using the prompts. Okay, just quickly, and then we'll get into more details. Completion prompts, recall prompts, open-ended prompts, the question prompts, and distancing. We might call that connecting to our experience. So you're kind of getting outside of the book and connecting it to reality. So first, completion prompts. So again, my advice to you is to use these prompts as your own security blanket, not a rubber hose to beat yourself up. So use these as a security blanket. Excuse me. So in the middle, I have lots of print, but kind of the structure in the middle is, it'll be the same, repeated on each page. Kind of the how we do it. The next one will be kind of when, what kind of books, an example, and then finally why we would do this kind of prompt. What's the benefit of this kind of prompt? So completion prompts, I think as a parent, well, a grandparent now, that this is something I seem to do naturally. Maybe my mom did it, I don't know, but you leave a blank at the end. You especially use it with books that rhyme or have a repetitive phrase. For example, brown bear, what do you? And let the child fill it in. And you can see why you wouldn't do this on the first time. So you have read this book at least once before you do the completion prompt. Completion prompts, the why we do them, it really builds awareness of the structure of language, how it works. And then off to the side, you can see there's me with some people I'm very proud of. So those are my 4 grandchildren. I share more with my husband, but these are the 4 on my side here. And this is one of our favorite books. And we have been reading this book since before those girls were part of this picture. So my 2 grandsons and I would read this. Do you do a didgeridoo? And it has a lot of repetition. And do you do a didgeridoo? No, we didgeridoo. And we've had so much fun with this over the years. It's like a family tradition. So even though those boys are 15 now, we still pull this book out and read it together. We have a didgeridoo at each of our houses, and we get that involved in it. So it really has prompted a lot. And as they get older, it's been a connection to find out, well, what people use a didgeridoo, and a whole lot of expansion. Recall prompts are questions about what's happening or has happened in the book. Again, you've already read the book, so you can, at the end of the book, you might recall things that happened, or before you read the book again on subsequent times. And as you know, kids will keep coming back with that book, like the didgeridoo book. Grandma, will you read this? So you can ask some recall prompts when they bring that book back to you. And do you remember what did Who is this man? What does he want? What kind of store is this? So you can do that on the next read. You can do it with almost any type of book, especially if there's a story going on. So that's why the authors of Reading Rocket said, alphabet books probably don't work so well because there's not a whole lot of complex story there to remember. An example. Oh, do you remember this story about Llama Llama? What happened to Llama at the store? Do you remember why he was upset? That kind of thing. And these recall prompts help a little learner or a big learner pay attention to the sequence of events and what's happening, the plot, kind of the text structure at this level. So I think it builds an early introduction to text structure that can be expanded later. Another prompt in that crowd is open-ended prompts. And it really helps to have really vibrant pictures. So ones with really great illustrations. I've put two of my favorite books with favorite illustrators as well up here on the screen. So you might say, tell me what's happening in this picture. So then you can pay attention to and notice the learner's language, and then you can build on that. This helps the learners build their expressive fluency and attend to the details in the picture. For some of my language learners, if we're working on talking about our feelings and helping, so my moms are trying to help build the language of expressing your feelings, then we might pay attention and build some of those words. Oh, look at her face. How do you think she's feeling right here? Things like that. So you can really target the language that you want to build up by a careful choice of the books. The question word prompts usually begin with, as you know, what, where, when, why, how. And like open-ended prompts, they often focus on the pictures. Use those as the inspiration for your questioning. So we might say, what's this called? Or if it's pre-language, if the learners are so little that they're not speaking much, you can be the one modeling the language. Oh, show me the puppy. Show me the red strawberry. Where's the whatever? I think about, I don't know if you can see, you're probably looking at the whole slide, but I have this Goodnight Moon book, and there's a little mouse on here, and the mouse changes where it's at on each of the pictures. So then the kids love it. It's like, where's the mouse now? Show me the mouse. So even if they can't produce language, they can be processing with the language that you're modeling. So you can teach that new vocabulary. If they can't find that strawberry, oh, here it is. And then you can come back to it. Where's the strawberry? And then they can point to it. And distancing prompts. So here we're asking to form a relationship with the experiences connected to their own lives. And this is a book I've used a couple of times with the family learning parents in the fall before we go on an orchard trip, pre-pandemic, of course, but One Green Apple. So I might ask the little people, do you remember when we picked apples, when we went to the orchard? Or this story is about a new immigrant, and she had very little words in English to use. And so it's really seeing that process of learning a new language and the feelings again. So I've used it to ask these questions. Love this book. So distancing prompts, as that last bullet says, really help build bridges between books and their lives, and it really helps build conversational skills. And you can use it, you know, a combination. So we read through this book several times, and I cycled through that peer. And, you know, I would start with asking the adult moms, you know, what do you see in this picture? So I could hear what language they did have, and then we could build on it. Well, I'm feeling like I'm rushing through. Susan, are you looking at the chat? I haven't looked at all. Okay.
People commenting on your books and remembering the books that kids, and yeah. And we are at 12 o'clock, so you have 15 minutes left.
Plenty of time. I don't know if I can get to this. If I just click it, will it go?
Nope. I do have it queued up if you need me to
Would you do that? Yeah, then I don't have
but
to think.
You will need to
stop sharing.
Stop your screen sharing, and I'll get it open here.
Well, while Susan's getting that queued up, another thing my family learning partner and I did, we got a grant for this Raising a Reader many years ago. So then we had a number of book bags that we would send home with the early childhood family parents. And anyway, long story short, we weren't getting books from them, enough varieties. So then we just took over kind of getting multilingual books ourselves and filling those book bags. And so we have a book bag with a couple of activities, a couple of books, ideas. We go over the parents, practice some of those prompts with the parents as they read the books before they take them home. So we're really building up their comfort with using some prompts with their kids. So I recommend doing something like that as a bridge to parents using these prompts at home. Okay. Here's a
You're ready. I have the video ready.
Okay, so this
or
video,
you can keep going. You have time.
Okay. This video is, we won't play more than a couple of minutes, but this video is an elementary teacher using dialogic reading, and it appears the kids are about 4 or 5 years old.
Is there a particular spot in the video you want?
I think you could start right at the beginning, and I'll just holler at you after about 2 minutes.
All right, here we go.
Oh, I was imagining it being where I had, there we go.
Good Enough to Eat, a Kid's Guide to Food and Nutrition. That's an interesting word, right? Nutrition? But yeah, what do you think about that, huh?
I don't know what that means.
Well, we are going to learn, exactly. So this book is written by Lizzie Rockwell. She is the author, because the author does what?
Write the words.
Writes the words, the author writes words. But you want to know something else that's really cool about this book? Lizzie Rockwell, she's also the illustrator. So that means she also drew the pictures in the book too. So she not only wrote the book, but she drew the pictures. So she did both jobs.
That is cool.
That is cool, yeah. So Good Enough to Eat, a Kid's Guide to Food and Nutrition by Lizzie Rockwell. So babies cry when they're hungry. Dogs
Susan, could you go to about 18 minutes, 40 seconds?
Your stomach grumbles.
Thank you.
They're vegetable. Grapes.
Are grapes vegetables? Or are they?
They're sweet.
They are sweet. Grapes are fruits.
I had grapes the last time.
So yeah, so grapes are fruit. What are grapes? They are fruits, everyone. They are fruits. We are back on this page.
With everyone.
That's right, with everyone. And everyone's doing something different. So we said that this girl and this boy, they were doing...
It was like us comparing stuff because we were comparing water for ourselves.
Were you comparing or preparing? Preparing.
When we were in the 3s and 4s with Patricia, we in the snack time, we prepared our water all by ourselves.
So during snack time, you prepared your water all by yourself? That is really good.
Me too.
So who can show me who is preparing something in this picture?
Me.
Sarah, show me, point and show who's preparing something in this picture. Bryson, this girl, tell me what this girl is preparing.
She's doing the cups. She's making the cups for everyone.
I think that's good, Susan. Thank you.
There you go. It's all yours again.
Thanks. So you could see that teacher and hear that the kids, there was it didn't feel like academic torture. It was really fun going back and forth, building that language of nutrition, fruits and vegetables, preparing some of the words that went with that very naturally. So you can see it isn't just with tiny little ones, that you can use it with older kids and all the way up. I did put a number of links to raising readers and that reading rockets on this last slide. And I'm going to, I think, stop sharing, I hope.
Actually, I stopped sharing, so you need to reshare.
Oh,
you're sharing.
So you don't see my last slide.
But I will also let everybody know that the slides and the handouts are available in the participant materials folder for the conference. So you'll be able to pick those up and click the links and view them at your leisure.
That's right. So in the participant, I have a several handouts that you can use with parents, share with parents. And in that participant, I also have a graphic organizer of all of these prompts and the examples for quick reference reasons. So you can grab those. What else do I want to say? Oh, you can read you can listen to Do You Do a Didgeridoo on this website. And here's that link for the teacher using Dialogic Reading. I'm going to stop sharing and change my view. I just want to kind of wrap up and make connections to our own lives here. So anybody want to open up and share about what you were thinking as you were listening to this quick little take and bake? Can you see using it in your own life or sharing it with somebody else at work, at school, at home? Any inspirations there or any parallels with adult instruction you want to share?
And we did have one in the chat earlier from Mary Jo, who said that the prompts are a help for pre-GED students as well.
Right. Yeah, they really do. You can, the ones that I shared are written in a simple level, but you can build the complexity. The structure is there and you can make it whatever you want.
And I think I might have accidentally just cut some as they were starting to speak. So whoever that was, I'm sorry. It's your turn.
Oh, that's okay. It's just me. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Because I live on a farm and it doesn't always do what it's supposed to on this internet stuff. But I see many parallels. Instead of using the word child or children, I use student, because my students are at that level, some of them. And so it's very applicable to use all these prompts, no matter what you're teaching. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's very good. I mean, I was excited to come to your session. So thank you.
Thank you for joining, Mary Jo.
Yeah, thanks. I can't type worth anything, as you can see. That's okay. Thanks again. I'm going to mute.
No, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Well, I'm glad you all joined. I hope that you further percolate on these precepts and hopefully find a place for them in your life. Are we okay to end a few minutes early?
I'll just put the link to the flyer in the chat so folks have that ready for going to the next session.
Awesome. Thanks for your help, Susan.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed listening to your presentation too, Teresa. I remember all the time I spent reading to my now 14-year-old. When we were little, we used to read so many books. He was a total bookworm as a little kid, and he still is.
Probably still is.
He recently borrowed a series of books from his uncle. It's a 14-book fantasy series. And they're all like 400 pages long. And he is plowing through them. He's on book 4. And so I can attest the value of dialogic reading, making kids long readers, because it definitely worked in his case.
Good testament there, yeah. Thanks, Susan. Thanks all for joining. Have a great Institute.